What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football home over on fakepigskin.com. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Robert. Follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me early in the week, you know what that means, it's DJ Boyer time. What's up, DJ?
All good. Still wearing the Eagles shirt, even though it was a bad week. But
Yeah, well,
it's
at least your
still
team
young
didn't
season.
lose to the Bills.
That's true. Okay,
Mm,
I'll give
yeah,
that one to you.
yeah, that was, and it's annoying because we beat you guys, and I was like, all right, Titans 3-1, looking good. When it got a little gutsy in overtime, I liked it. And then they came out this week, and it was like a completely different team. It's not the one we saw, and it was very, very frustrating. But that's what the Titans do: 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 1 step forward, 12 steps back. Either way.
3 4th down conversions against Philly. You had to like the moxie they were showing, and you always give your best for the world champs. And things were looking up, so that's got to be disappointing as well.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot to get into tonight, but I guess before we jump into everything, was there one thing that you took away from Week 5 that really impressed you, really concerned you? Obviously, anything that stood out.
I really think that I can't remember after 5 weeks. I can't remember after watching the Rams in a very good game against Seattle. To me, it was probably the game of the week. A very, very good game.
Hmm.
You could really feel the desperation with Seattle having to win that game to pull within one game of the lead, because with the loss, Seattle now at 2-3 stands in second place, 3 games behind the Rams, and 5 games into a season. I don't think I've ever looked at a division after 5 weeks going, yeah, that division's done.
Yeah,
I don't see
yeah,
anybody catching the Rams. And I remember a game being that crucial to putting a division away so early. To me, that really stood out, that I think the Rams have just wrapped up the West thus far.
yeah. And it looks like they're well on their way to wrapping up the NFC pretty convincingly the way they're playing. And we'll get into kind of some of their injuries, so it'll be interesting to see how they respond. But between Jared Goff playing the way he is and Todd Gurley and that defense, I have a hard time envisioning anyone else coming out of the NFC at this point. But the NFL's weird; things get happen, and all of a sudden we're sitting here in December and going, "Remember when the Rams were just destroying everybody? Now they're on the brink of getting knocked out of the playoffs by a suddenly hot team we didn't see coming." So, yeah, I think that's a great point. But yeah, I think it's all. It seems like it's all over. Um, I want to hit the AFC North. There's 2 teams, the Bengals and the Browns, both really impressed me. Especially the Bengals. The Bengals got down big, and it looked like they were, typical Bengals. Andy Dalton, looks like as soon as they're good, things kind of take a step backwards. But they scored 24 points in the fourth quarter to not only win but cover against the Dolphins. Those plucky Browns found a way, even though they found themselves in overtime once again. They found a way to pull out a win. And when young teams that have a lot of potential, start putting it together and start playing well, and winning games that maybe they aren't supposed to win, that's how you know stuff's kind of trending in the right direction. So it was great to see the Browns kind of do that and you know prove that they are headed on the right path.
Yeah, and to think that Hugh Jackson's won more games in the last 3 weeks than he's won in the last 2 years, you really just got to be excited the way this defense has stepped up. And I really thought that it was kind of a mistake taking Baker Mayfield at 1.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I were leading the Browns at that point, I really think I would have looked in the direction of Bradley Chubb. And really, we've seen what they've done with that defense, and they look re-energized. They're one of the top defenses in the AFC.
Yeah.
But having bookend talent like Myles Garrett and Bradley Chubb, to me, was just downright scary. But, Mayfield's made the plays when he has to. He obviously hasn't played nearly as well as he did in that first week when he came off the bench and had that win against the Jets.
Yeah.
But he's done enough and got it done when he needs to. So hats off to the Browns. They're
Yeah,
for
I
real.
think I think I think if they had a better coach, they'd be even in a better spot. But it was one of those times that typically I would agree with you that Chubb was probably the right pick, um, but it was I think it was a special draft class where you could tell, like when we had the Eli Manning, the Phil Rivers, the Ben Roethlisberger draft class. Obviously what was the '84 with Marino. There's Jim Kelly. Like there's certain ones that you can kind of just get a feeling, and it all kind of comes to fruition. And this one felt like that to me. And I personally would have gone Rosen just because I think long term he's going to be the guy. But I was definitely there with Baker and thought he made a lot of sense. And there's an offensive genius down in Oklahoma that might make a ton of sense, say, if he wanted to leave college and head to the pros and replace Hugh. Maybe they'll win too many games, but Lincoln Riley reunited with Baker Mayfield, that's something that, as a football fan, I'd be very excited about, and as a fantasy owner, I'd be even more excited about.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of whispers that if someone's coming from the college ranks, that's obviously a hot name. We even heard a little bit about the coach that beat him, Tom Herman, before.
Yeah.
Now the fact that Texas is really kind of looking like they're the real deal again. I've always been an advocate of David Shaw for years. It was Kirk Ferentz, but he never left Iowa.
Yeah.
But yeah, that definitely makes sense. I was kind of more on the Rosen or Darnold, not nearly as high on Baker Mayfield. But the thing that is really encouraging is we're seeing less and less busts.
Yeah.
What you would term busts coming out of the college game. And I think that's just with the complexity of the offenses. There's a lot more ingenuity in NFL games right now where they're kind of borrowing wrinkles from college.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's making the transition a little bit easier. We're not seeing it's not that 50-50 anymore. It's more like a 75-25 that you've got a guy that's going to make it.
Yeah, well, and I think we'll see waves too where there's really talented guys and they'll just find ways to the NFL, and then there's other waves that teams kind of have to reach and end up taking a guy way earlier than they should, and then ends up becoming a bust when nobody actually graded him as a first-round talent, but because of the scarcity of the position and all that stuff, it made it look like that. But we're here to talk some fantasy, and there's a lot to get into, and we'll start right there with your Philadelphia Eagles, because it came out today that Jay Ajayi has a torn ACL. It's season ending. He is done for the year. Big blow to this team, obviously, that wants to attempt to repeat. Is dealing with some issues itself. Obviously, got Wentz back, but I guess how do you see this backfield shaking out now that Ajayi is out of the picture?
Wow, it's injury bugs really hit him hard. Wendell Smallwood, I've said all along, to me has really been the best fit.
Yeah.
But he's had problems staying on the field his first two seasons. He showed pretty well when he's had the chance. Unfortunately, they're playing from behind. They didn't really get a lot of chances to really showcase the run game. So it really looked like more of a running back by committee. But the other real interesting thing here today was the news about Fletcher Cox and restructuring his deal. And there was a lot of talk like, oh, this is for Le'Veon Bell. The Eagles are going to try to make a play. The money that they're going to be saving under the cap doesn't look like that's the case, but you never know. I just don't, at this point, it's just up in the air.
Yeah,
really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I just Le'Veon Bell. If you kind of put some of the puzzle pieces together, it could theoretically make sense. But I still think they're spending so much money at other positions, and I don't see them making that move. This has kind of been a team that has been a little RBBC, a little running back by committee this year anyways, even with a healthy Ajayi. The thing I like is if you're adding Smallwood early, there's potential that Sproles misses another game. There's potential that Corey Clement isn't healthy or isn't full go. And maybe you actually get Smallwood with 15 to 20 touches and, could be a really nice option. Obviously, each of the past 3 weeks, 3 catches out of the backfield, so that's nice to see him involved a little bit there. So there's a lot to be kind of excited about going forward with this team. But, yeah, I think if Clement's healthy, I think if Josh Adams maybe gets a handful of carries, it's going to be a situation. But I think if there's one guy I want to own in that backfield, it's Wendell Smallwood.
Yeah, he's just got to stay healthy. And unfortunately, with the season right now with Philadelphia, wouldn't be betting on him staying staying healthy right now.
Yeah.
Just seems like the trainer right now is the team MVP.
Yeah. There's a few teams that are kind of dealing with a mass unit. Speaking of an injury riddled teams, let's talk about those Rams. Obviously, looking like world beaters, looking like a team that could run away with the NFL and win the Super Bowl. They lost Brandon Cooks on a really bad helmet to helmet hit that looks like it may keep him out a little while. Cooper Kupp just kind of didn't come back in the second half. They're saying he's dealing with concussion issues. If you're a Jared Goff owner, obviously not having Cooks, not having Goff, or not having Cooks and Kupp it is a big blow. But do you still think he's a guy that has enough pieces around him, especially with Todd Gurley, where he's a guy you're playing every week and you're kind of okay using him?
I think so, and I think if anything, it just makes Todd Gurley's value go up because I think you're going to see him more active in the passing game. And if you really look at the film on Goff, it's not like he's just looking at his number one option. He's just done so well looking at second, third options and looking off primary receiver that he's not trying to force balls into coverage. He's really surveying the field well and finding that open man. I think Robert Woods goes from maybe a number 2 guy to maybe a number 1 guy right now in a lot of leagues. He's going to be the guy that's going to get a lot of looks. And there's plenty of talent to go around there. It just seems to be playing with a lot of confidence and playing in a market like LA. Jared Goff is just kind of just very quiet and soft spoken and not something like very brash and what you would say is kind of like the LA lifestyle. And he's putting up MVP numbers, but he's really not the first guy you talk about. You talk about the defense and the big pieces there and Todd Gurley. He almost seems to be an afterthought. And for doing that and having the season that he is, it's kind of amazing when you really think about it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And obviously we saw last year with Robert Woods kind of took off as the season kind of rolled along and became that primary guy when Sammy Watkins was supposed to be that guy and never really assumed that role. I think in the short term, Goff will be fine. Obviously, Todd Gurley, like you mentioned, will get a little extra work. I think Josh Reynolds is somebody that it would be worth taking a look at. Second-year receiver out of Texas A&M. I liked him coming out. Obviously has good size at 6'3", almost 200 pounds. When you were kind of examining him in the draft process, was he somebody that was sort of interesting to you?
Absolutely. He's a guy that is very reminiscent of Stephon Diggs. When Stephon Diggs came out of Maryland, this was first-round talent.
Yeah.
There was a lot of off-the-field issues, just some things that you knew it was going to push him down in the draft. And Josh Reynolds was the same type of guy. If he's ever able to get in the right system and just get it all together, a team was really going to come away with a big-time steal. So, but also with that kind of player, the bust potential, someone like a Dorial Green Beckham or someone like that, where they've got all the talent, but for whatever reason they can't put it together. There's other distractions that they just never quite get over the hump at the pro level.
Yeah.
So it was a big bust or boom kind of reward pick. But again, if that's going to pan out, now he's going to have that opportunity. You're looking at a guy who could be a future starter that you pretty much got off the scrap heap.
Yeah, no, and I think at least in the short term, if Cooks misses a couple weeks, if Kupp misses a game or two, I think he could be a nice guy. And as you mentioned, Goff is very fine spreading the ball around, even if it's 5-6 targets here, 7 targets there. Gerald Everett, Tyler Higbee, they could see a little more work as well.
Yes.
And for a team that really hasn't used the tight end a ton, this might be an opportunity where if you're desperate at tight end, you could look at Tyler Higbee and maybe he gets, 5 targets this week and maybe gets a goal line look and kind of Cooper Kupp's spot and ends up having a decent week.
That's kind of a little bit of my thunder when we're doing some waiver wire talk later. Tyler Higbee was going to be at the top of my list. I really think that's a guy who's going to be performing well and is going to get a lot more, probably double the looks that he got early in the season. So I think Higbee's a guy you really, really want to look at if he's available in your league.
Yeah, and I think, even in the deepest of leagues, he's floating around on a lot of waiver wires, and that in the tight end position kind of in general has been so messy that anytime you can get a guy who's going to get that kind of work, it's definitely worth looking in their direction. Let's head to Detroit and talk about this backfield. It's kind of a frustrating one if you're a Kerryon Johnson owner. obviously Kerry.
Me.
He is so good when he gets the ball, but Patricia is basically split the carries on Sunday. LeGarrette Blount's getting all the red zone work, and then Johnson ends up leaving the game with an ankle injury. I guess it it's probably say I don't know, with the Lions having the bye, it's hard to tell whether we actually will see him coming out of the bye, or if it's a little bit more of a serious injury. But I guess if we assume that they both the backfield comes out of the bye, everybody's fine, everybody's ready to go. Is carry on someone you're going to be comfortable putting in your lineup, knowing that when he gets touches he's good, but just not knowing what kind of volume he may see?
Yeah, when he gets touches, he's electrifying. When I watch him on film, what I really like is sometimes when you see these players coming out of college, I mean, they're so explosive. They're looking to hit the home run maybe a little too much, really make that big impact. What I like is I see a lot of times on film where the possibility for a big run is there, but sometimes he's just good taking the 4, 5, 6 yard gain, going somewhere where maybe there's some more people there, but he knows he's going to pick up positive yardage. He just seems to, I don't know, just have great football intelligence and is making the right decisions. But it is a little frustrating. I do have some friends actually in the over in Detroit that actually cover the team pretty well. And the thing that really holds him back, that sometimes, again, you don't really see it from a fantasy perspective, but you want him to be on the field more, and blocking's really been an issue.
Yeah.
I believe the direct quote was he couldn't block his way out of a paper bag. So I'm hearing that from a couple different people. And again, it's frustrating because blocking from a running back position, it really doesn't mean much to us from a fantasy perspective, but it's keeping him from the field. I think if he were a better blocker and some of those other things that really kind of go on behind the scenes, we'd be seeing him with a lot more opportunities. It's probably taking a good 7 to 8 touches a game away from him because of just those little things that'll come with time.
Yeah, and Patricia obviously has familiarity with LeGarrette Blount, so he knows he'll pick up the right assignments, do the right thing. It's kind of what we're seeing. Like there's a few running backs. Aaron Jones is another guy who, when he's running, is explosive, but sometimes there's questions with his pass blocking, and that's why Jamal Williams gets a few more carries than maybe some Jones owners would like. So, it's one of those things that as fantasy owners we get frustrated with. But, if you look at it from the head coach's point of view, as long as they're getting their yardage and everyone's picking up the protections, and as a team they get 100 total yards, they don't really care how it comes, as long as it does. Now, if we are without Kerryon Johnson, is Blount obviously someone you want to add this week? And then what do you think about Theo Riddick in terms of his potential, especially on third down? Maybe he gets a few more looks.
Yeah, third down back Theo Riddick is I really think he could be one of the top 5 pass catching running backs in the NFL. It's just we don't see him nearly as much. But if you just want to break it down from a straight up skills, he's right up there. He's definitely up there. And Blount, he looks like he's going to be the king of the guy who's going to get you 40 yards, but is probably going to flop into the end zone once a game.
Yep.
Detroit's going to get down there within the 5-yard line, and he's almost automatic. I mean, it happened a few years ago. It was just 2 years ago. He actually led the league with 14 rushing touchdowns, about 1,100 yards. But a lot of that, again, big damage. The fact that he just gets the goal line looks. He's tough to stop inside that 5-yard line. And even though he had 1,100 yards, the Patriots were one of the top rushing teams. They really spread the ball around well. It wasn't a one-man show.
Yeah.
It's just he got so many of the touchdowns. He was such a valuable fantasy football asset.
Yeah, and it was like there was a play where it bounced. They did the Lions punted, and it bounced off a Packer, and they ended up getting it on the 2-yard line, and in comes LeGarrette Blount, and then he just falls in the end zone, and all of a sudden, and there's another touchdown for you, LeGarrette. Congratulations. And if you're a Leonard Fournette owner, some of these running back names will be interesting to you because he is already ruled out this week. So there's some names that if you're looking for somebody to potentially pick up, those are great ways to look. Okay, so let's, as you mentioned, we want to hit the waiver wire and talk about some names that you want to pick up. So I'll run through some names. And we'll kind of rank them for everybody, and then anybody else you have off the top, feel free to shout them out. But if you're picking up a running back, Obviously, Wendell Smallwood, I think we both really like, at least in the short term. Um, LeGarrette Blunt, but you have to sit with that bye. And then Ronald Jones is somebody that I've kind of wanted to be something, and he finally got some work last week after being active, or I guess 2 weeks ago. With the Bucks coming off the bye, is Ronald Jones somebody you're looking to pick up and potentially use starting this week?
I'm taking a little bit of a wait and see approach, but I think he's the most talented person in that backfield. Another name that I really think is interesting is I think maybe more people thought we were going to see more out of Alfred Morris when the season began
Yeah.
in San Francisco. It started to be the Matt Breida show. He actually went down as well. There's a lot of leagues where Morris was kind of cast aside, and I think maybe now he becomes the focal point, especially with C.J. Beathard still just obviously the amount of a downgrade you have going from a Jimmy Garoppolo to C.J. Beathard is very, very noticeable.
Yeah.
So I think that hopefully getting those a touchdown or so a game. Alfred Morris, I think, has helped a lot of people. I think Jones is good for a long-term pick, maybe more of kind of a dynasty league or someone you can kind of sit, or if you've got a really deep bench. But it'll be interesting to see how much work he gets out coming out of a bye week. They're probably going to work him more and more in there. I think we're going to see him on the field. I just don't know if we're really at the point where he's really going to be the focal point of that offense. It's probably more of a 1A, 1B situation with Peyton Barber as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much work Barber gets. I think that could be a bit of a timeshare, as you mentioned. So if you're going to the waiver wire, and obviously Breida is banged up, so it looks like Alfred Morris will get the majority of the work at least this week. If you're ranking them for the rest of the season, Wendell Smallwood, LeGarrette Blunt, Ronald Jones, Alfred Morris, rank them for me.
I would say Morris number one. I feel the best about. The only real problem there is you don't really see San Francisco being very, very competitive. Unfortunately, I think that they're going to be behind so much they're going to be throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Smallwood, another guy that I would put up there, but just the health is it always concerns me there. So it's really hard to rank just because there's really no one that I think is head and shoulders above anyone in this group. I'm just going to go Morris just from the experience factor. He's the guy that's got the most experience of the three or four or people you mentioned. You just really got to worry that San Francisco really stays competitive, and it's not a situation where they've abandoned the run game and they find themselves down 20 points in every game. Yeah. Unfortunately, that could be the thing that limits his potential, or he's going to have to come out early and really get some big points.
Yeah, and then Kyle Juszczyk in real deep leagues could make sense, especially if we think the offense is going to struggle and have to throw. He's a guy that's they've used in unique ways to kind of get him the ball. If I'm adding for the rest of the season, I'm going to plant my flag. I'm going Ronald Jones. I think he's the top option. I think he's going to steal this job, and I think he's going to be a guy that we want come playoff time. I think Alfred Morris is probably two, just because Breida, I like him a lot, but he's already banged up. Is in the offense, I don't know. It's interesting to see where it's going, but I'll go Alfred Morris 2. I'll go Smallwood 3 and LeGarrette Blunt 4 in hopes that Kerryon Johnson gets more work, or at least if you need somebody in the short term that can fall in the end zone and that's all you need, LeGarrette Blunt's a great option. But I want a little more from my running back, so I think that's my order. Let's talk receivers now. Obviously, Josh Reynolds, we mentioned. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had a really nice game for the Packers. Obviously, not having Randall Cobb, not having Geronimo Allison, opened up a lot of volume, and the Packers got down big early in this game. But he was really productive and was third on the team in targets. It was a little slow and go at first, but he seemed to understand where he was supposed to be and not kind of, running the wrong routes and ending up in the wrong spot. And then Kiki QT, this guy is just getting volume. He is being impressive. Deshaun Watson's looking for him. He obviously scored a touchdown this week. If you're adding these guys from the waiver wire, Josh Reynolds, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Kiki QT, what's the order for you?
I like Kiki QT. I really do. Hometown kind of a product there. Played at Texas Tech. I just think that they're going to be spreading the ball around so much that we're seeing him being worked more and more into that offense. And really, I mean, they've got so many kind of over the top receivers. There's so many good receivers there in Houston, with Hopkins and with Fuller, and they're all good, but they're kind of the same guy. They really don't have that real reliable, smaller kind of slottish guy. And I think he's a guy that could be that reliable guy moving the sticks, especially in PPRs.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more and more out of him. I really like him. I think another person is, again, you don't really think about Josh Rosen in Arizona as lighting the world on fire. But I think we saw the long touchdown to Christian Kirk, and I think there's a rapport that's being built there. I think that's kind of you got the rookie quarterback working with that rookie wide receiver. I think this is a combo that I think in 2 to 3 years could be very lethal. Yeah. And I think we're just starting to see that now. So there's really, I mean, you've got Larry Fitzgerald there, but he's really kind of slowing down. I think it's at the point where we're going to see the torch being passed. And another team where it's kind of like the 49ers. I think they're going to be down a lot late in games. This is a guy who could get 4, 5, 6 catches every week kind of in garbage time when teams are playing really soft. And Kirk starts racking up some stats.
Yeah.
So I think Christian Kirk's available in a lot of places. And I think he's a guy that I really like as well.
Yeah, I love that call. I'm a huge Christian Kirk fan. I've got him in a lot of dynasty leagues, him and Rosen. I'm big on that duo, and I think long term they're both going to be really good. And Kirk's definitely somebody that if you have flexibility on the end of your bench to kind of let him sit there and learn and use him in spots like against the Niners, like against Seattle, like in positions where there's going to be times for them to throw against weaker defenses. I think there is potential for him to, especially as the season rolls along, to really gain some traction. If I'm adding somebody for long term, I think QT is my number one guy. Just like you mentioned, there's going to be plenty of room underneath, especially in PPR leagues. There's going to be value there. He's going to be a guy that you can rely on a little bit more. I think Valdez-Scantling would be number 2, just because Allison could be back next week, and then maybe we get Cobb back and he kind of goes. Same kind of for Josh Reynolds, who is definitely a short-term replacement. But if you need short-term, if you're looking to fill a couple bye weeks and whatnot, they're both great names that this week and potentially next week could help you. All right, DJ, as we head towards week 6, we're already almost 6 weeks through the season. Is there something you're trying to see, whether it's something that you've kind of been noticing that you've seen come to fruition, or something that you're anticipating as we head into week 6, as we approach the midpoint of the season? Is there a player or a team or something you're keeping your eye on?
As far as the team, I'm really just impressed that kind of what you said earlier about the Rams kind of holds true with the Chiefs as well. Mm-hmm. This is a team that's kind of fooled us before. This is the third time that the team's gotten off to a 5-0 start with Andy Reid, and obviously they don't have anything to show for it. So, we've seen a few interceptions now from Patrick Mahomes. Is the league starting to catch up? There's still so many weapons there it's interesting to me to see if the Chiefs can keep this up, or is this more of the same, or I think there's a lot of us that are still kind of waiting for that implosion. Like, yes, and a couple of years ago when the Chiefs just got out and thumped the Patriots in week 1, this is the changing of the guard. The Patriots aren't going to do it anymore, and eventually it's kind of like the Chiefs fall to earth. So is this the real thing that we're going to be seeing now? I think that remains to be seen. The Browns, to me, just intriguing. And another thing, when did field goal kickers become so unrelaable?
Mason Crosby is the most reliable kicker. Like, he's been doing it for so long, and they I heard someone call him Mason Crossbari or something today. I was laughing.
I think I saw more missed field goals than made field goals this week. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it seems like they're on a rotation, and one guy gets cut from one team and ends up in another team's practice squad, and it's a very weird situation, and that's why I take kickers out of my fantasy leagues when I can, because they're just the worst. They're just I'm really excited to see the Bucks this week. Obviously, a great matchup against Tampa Bay. I want to see what Jameis and company look like coming off the bye. They've had a week to kind of figure stuff out. Let's see if what version of the Bucks we get. Are they still a mess offensively? Is Jameis still kind of on his way out, or is this, kind of something we should be expecting? Where because he's gonna be a guy that I'm gonna recommend to a lot of people to use. I think there's especially the next couple weeks. He's got some really intriguing matchups, um, and we saw this Falcons defense is just, it's going the wrong way, and it's really really bad. And you're right on with the Browns. I think this matchup versus the Chargers is interesting. Obviously, another week at home, a good opportunity, and we'll see what Mitchell Trubisky does. Obviously was really impressive before the bye, coming back. Obviously, that defense will be itself, but can Trubisky be good enough to kind of keep the offense rolling and make this Bears team, a borderline playoff team? Because obviously the Packers aren't at the level they need to be to make the playoffs, and Detroit's still kind of floundering. So there is an opportunity there in this division. Even the Vikings are only 2-2, so they could not only make the playoffs but win the division, and that's something none of us saw coming in. So I'm really curious to see what the Bears look like over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and also the two 5-0 teams, they both have some very tough matchups. We talked about Kansas City and New England. They're going to be facing off again. That's going to be the Sunday night game. So are the Patriots all the way back? Of course, they got to 1-2, and everyone thought, the sky was falling. And, of course, now 3-2. But, they stare 3-3, losing against Kansas City. That's a little bit of an uphill battle. But I think this is a good week for them to kind of silence a lot of their critics. They'll be at home against Kansas City. And the Rams, you never want to discount Denver at home, especially with that pass rush. It's really going to put a lot of pressure on the offensive line there. So I really kind of want to see how the Rams are going to do against Denver. And the matchup you talked about with the Bucks and the Falcons, because we talked about some teams that are beat up. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that has more defensive injuries than the Falcons have just been decimated. Really just, especially at the linebacker position, it's just night and day from what they had starting in week 1 to what they had in week 5. It's really kind of a sad state of affairs. The Falcons were the team that I had picked to actually represent the NFC when the season began, and they're just a shell of what they were in week 1. And Julio Jones, he didn't catch a ball till the third quarter. We saw a little more Mohamed Sanu. So really, I want to see how this shakes out. Is this more of, teams paying more attention to Calvin Ridley and Mohamed Sanu, or is there something going on with Julio Jones there? Him and Matt Ryan seem to just be off a tick. I want to know if this is something going to carry over or just something that they're going to work through in a week or two. They're just going to be lighting it up like they usually do.
Yeah, I still think good times are coming for Julio. I thought it was going to be a little come to earth week for Ridley, and we definitely saw that. Sanu got that touchdown, but it'll be. I'm really curious to see this Falcons offense, and obviously Freeman being back, it was a very time split, so that I think is going to be frustrating for fantasy owners. But if things get real bad in Atlanta, we could see some interesting offense, and who knows what maybe Julio ends up getting shipped out, and I don't know who. It's a very interesting time, and it'll definitely be worth monitoring the Falcons over the next couple weeks, because if they're like 2-5, there's not going to be a lot to get excited about down there.
That's true. One other thing I do want to say quickly, though, too, as well, with the game going on tonight, congratulations to Drew Brees, all-time NFL leading passing leader now. Yep. And just the fact that now they're getting Mark Ingram back. He's been in the end zone a couple times, so don't count the Saints out. Do not count the Saints out. I think this is a team that could get hot and get on a roll here, and that could be your NFC representative. Right now, if you were to ask me, the Rams look head and shoulders like the best team in the NFC. Who is the one team, if I'm the Rams, that worry me? If the Saints kind of correct a few things there on defense, I think the Saints are the one team that can go toe-to-toe with them in a shootout. A couple big plays here or there. The Saints, to me, are the team that would worry the Rams the most.
Especially if they can somehow get that game in New Orleans. If the Rams have to go there. But, yeah, I would pay good money to see those two teams play. I think it would obviously offensively be incredible. And It would be so much fun to watch. All right, DJ. As always, great stuff. Good talks. Hopefully, you fantasy owners find some nuggets and some information. Obviously, we're always here. Leave comments on the YouTube page. Send me stuff on Twitter. We're always down to answer questions, all that good stuff. And we are now on Spotify, DJ, so they can have a new spot to listen to the show. So it's pretty good stuff. But for DJ Boye, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.